Now, let's go back to the Baftas. Tourette's sufferer John Davidson has blasted the BBC for failing to edit out his involuntary racial slur at the Baftas at the weekend. The BBC has admitted that not cutting out the involuntary slur was a serious mistake, and they've now launched an investigation. They love an investigation, don't they, over there at the BBC? Let's get a word from Rebecca Ryan, campaign director of Defund the BBC. Rebecca, it's kind of hard to keep up which investigation, because they've got the Glastonbury investigation, the Panorama investigation. All of these revolve around the issue of editing, which is interesting. You know, quite a simple process. It's been around for a long time. I think, you know, when Matey was running the BBC, Lord Reith, back in the day, they knew how to edit stuff. Apparently it's eluded them now, and here they are in another load of trouble.
Absolutely. It doesn't need an investigation, does it, really? I mean, we give them 3.7 billion a year, and they come up with this an excuse that they couldn't, you know, they couldn't edit it out because they were in a truck. So it's like, well, you can afford the best equipment that there is. And also you have people in the auditorium who could have told you, you know, when this happened. You know, it's an outrage that John Davidson's been hung out to dry this.
Yeah, can I just pick up on that specific point? The in a truck thing, I mean, I don't know whether they think we're stupid. It doesn't matter whether you're in a truck or in a room backstage. The same thing applies. The being in a truck doesn't somehow, you know, it's not got a force field around it that stops common sense going through. They happen to be in a truck because it was filmed in the, was it the Royal Festival Hall, wherever it was, one of those, you know, places. So they have a broadcast truck, not unusual. So the crew and those that are mixing it and outputting it, as they call it, would be sitting in there. But if they'd been sitting in the room next door, it would have been the same issue.
Absolutely. And so it doesn't need an investigation. It needs people to actually say, well, we've made a huge mistake. But let's not waste licence fee payers' money on this investigation. Look, they knew what the issues were with that evening ahead of time, because they knew ahead who was going to win, or at least at the very least they knew who the nominees were. So they knew the film was, and it's just the complete irony of the fact that this is the film that won and the subject matter, and then we have this whole hoo-ha where this poor guy is being, you know, accused of being racist. It's absolutely diabolical, and he should have been protected by the BBC, but he hasn't been.
No, and it's the Baftas is a big awards ceremony. I know it's not quite the Oscars, but it's kind of second. It's shown globally. It's a big deal for the BBC. Those involved in it would have been those at the top of their field, whether they're producers, directors, editors, whoever. Working in a delay is done for a couple of reasons. You know, it makes to broadcasters a lot of sense in case something goes wrong. They can cut it out. Live stuff is always fraught with difficulties, particularly when you've got a lot of lovies on stage who want to impart their political message. They did manage, curiously, to remove Free Palestine from one of the actors. I don't know which one it was that wielded that one. They got rid of that. But they couldn't, despite having a crew that are at the top of their game on site, they couldn't work out that getting rid of the N-word at an awards ceremony should have been removed. Now, as you rightly said at the beginning, Rebecca, so they've got this crazy excuse of the outside broadcast truck outside. OK, fine. Is somebody seriously asking us to believe that nobody from the BBC was in the building? Do they all go, right, the Baftas are starting, let's all leave? Of course they didn't. There were people there, there were floor managers and researchers, goodness knows who else, making sure they've got everything, talking to each other on their headpieces. Somebody would have gone, they had 2 hours to do this as well. So somebody would have gone, oh, by the way, Jim, did you get rid of, you know, the M-word? Did you get rid of it? It's not hard to understand what should have happened.
Absolutely. And John has said that, you know, there was a microphone left really quite close to him as well, which he's complained, why was it left near me? You know, so it seems to be sort of a catalogue of failures, you know, one thing after another, where he has then, you know, had these you know, and it's deeply embarrassing for the black people that were presenting on the stage, and also for, you know, across the world as well. But at the same time, there's a complete lack of understanding about Tourette's syndrome and about what causes the most extreme thing that can be said in that situation. That's the point of it. So for people like Jamie Foxx to turn around and say, well, clearly, we're not believing that he's just come, that it's accident, it's a misunderstanding of the syndrome. And it's all the BBC's fault that this has come to pass.
Yeah, and it wasn't really helped because Alan Cumming, who is, a very skilled and talented man who was hosting it, was then obviously given a script to sort of give an apology, but it wasn't really an apology because, if you were offended, well, when someone's wheeled out a word like that, I think the if you were offended bit is a slightly redundant and a bit inadequate in that context. So there was that going on. One of the curious things I did hear, though, Rebecca, on a different phone-in station that I happened to be listening to while cooking me chops the other night was... somebody said this just shows how right-wing the BBC is because they cut out the Palestine thing and encouraged the N-word. And I thought, really? That's a fascinating turn of events when the BBC are being called too right-wing.
I think there's absolutely no way in the world that the BBC actually chose to leave the word in. It's not as that this is a decision on their part. That would be completely outrageous, but it's obviously not the case. This is just professional negligence. And like you say, this is a huge event every year in the UK and globally, and the BBC should have been absolutely at the top of its game. We're forced to pay for the BBC if we watch any live broadcast TV at all, and this is hugely embarrassing. For them to just throw their hands in the air and say, well, we were working from a truck, it's just...
I mean, that is just the craziest excuse ever. But there is another theory on this, Rebecca, and that is that the BBC... Because in the 2 hours they've got to get it out... And by the way, it's... the use of the M-word is about half a second. So they wouldn't have had to do much editing. They'd just have had to dip the audience audio feed for that moment and it would have been gone. It wouldn't have affected the speakers, who did a brilliant job of kind of moving on and ignoring it as best they could, despite how shocking it must have felt up there, because I doubt whether they had time to go, oh, it's the Tourette's guy that did, they just heard the N-word being shouted at them as two black guys jump on the stage. One of the theories is that the BBC, in a classic example of being sort of, I don't even know if the word is woke, but sort of oversensitive to Tourette's, somebody thought it would be a terrible thing to remove someone's tick from a broadcast, even if it's John and even if it's the M-word, that you can't do that. He's got Tourette's. That's, that's terrible. That's like, not only showing someone's face when they're in a wheelchair so that you don't show the wheels. It's in that ballpark. In the absence of any other logic, is it possible it could be that?
I mean, it would absolutely beg a belief, wouldn't it? But that could explain why they had a microphone so close to him. I mean, or John has said that he actually called Alan Cumming a paedophile as well. So we're jumping on the race issue, but obviously there's a homophobia there as well. But somehow did that get cut out? We don't know. But he has said that his tick did make that happen. Yeah. But of course, the BBC has a duty of care to this guy who was there to celebrate, this film about his life story, and it's the irony of that. It's gone so badly wrong. Yeah, well, we'll add it to the list of edit inquiries that are going on over there at the BBC. I mean, the Panorama one, I genuinely can't wait for what. I don't even know if they're ever going to tell us what happened there, because there could be no excuse or reason on that one. Listen, great to have you on, Rebecca, as always. Thank you for your time. Rebecca Ryan is campaign director at Defund the BBC. It was an extraordinary moment, and if you saw it, I saw the apology, because I don't really watch awards things. I find them quite painful. And I'm a little bit interested in hearing what films I should have watched in the last year and didn't. So there's a bit of that going on, but it was only afterwards when obviously it was on social media and I thought, what? I know it's in delay. How did that not get removed? Paul's in.